All right, welcome back to Social Work 375, Chapter 4. This chapter delves into deciding on and identifying a research topic, which you have been in the process of doing for your project for this class. So we'll talk about some of the main thinking and talking points around picking a research topic and developing a research question. So depending on your discipline, ours is social work, but there are many researchers in many disciplines. Things can affect your topic selection, both your profession's political perspective and your own personal political perspectives, your sociocultural perspective, what your interest or specialization is within social work, what kinds of life experiences you've had. For example, I just recently completed my dissertation on adoption. That was related to my own personal experience with adoption, made me interested in that topic. And then external influences, research topics that need completing because of your employer, your funder, your community need. Certain things like that can guide you to pick one topic over another, just as they have in this class. So there are a number of questions for you to think about as a social work researcher, and hopefully you've given some thought to some of these already. As you begin to think about being a producer, that is, writing your research paper, the first and most obvious question is the topic important enough to research? And back in our chapter on ethics, we talked about the balance, the risk versus benefits. And in any research study, you need to be able to articulate how the potential benefits of your study are important and how they might outweigh any risks for that might come to the participants as a part of participating. So is the topic important? Then you can ask, is the topic too large? Is this something that can be managed within the scope of the research project? Are these questions reasonable questions that we can think that we'll answer? Is it interesting? Are people going to want to know about your findings? Are there groups of people in your community that are interested in knowing the question? So as you think about your own research question right here, think about who's going to be interested in these findings. Who's going to be the consumer of your research? You're going to think about your key concepts and how you will measure them. How will you tie things together by giving similar definitions? And particularly in quantitative research, measuring concepts becomes a key part of that methodology. Then you need to ask yourself, do you have the necessary skills and knowledge to proceed? And you do. And you're learning them in this class. That's the point of the project. But you'll also likely need some support and assistance, and that's the role that I play in meeting with you and working with you on your individual research topics. And then you have to ask yourself, can you access the data? Not only data if it's existing data, but also the participants. Do you have access? Can you reasonably think that you will be able to locate participants to give you the data that you need that are going to be willing to participate in your study? So when looking at produced research, as a consumer, when you are using that research to inform your practice, you're looking at someone else's research. You'll obviously look and probably you wouldn't have even picked up the article if the research topic wasn't relevant. You also want to ask yourself, do I understand the research questions? Do I understand the purpose of the research and the article or the report that I'm reviewing? Is it clear to you what the topic is? Can you detect any bias? Can you detect preconceived ideas or thoughts that the researcher brings to the paper and that aren't adequately addressed? Do you understand the theories? Can you see theory, and is theory articulated? What's guiding the researcher's thinking and how they both collect the data and interpret the data from a theoretical perspective? And then you're also going to want to look, and this is really important, did they really review the literature? Is there an adequate review of the literature? Meaning, did they look at what everyone else who's been researching this topic has done and found and summarize that, and then allow that data from others to guide the work that they're doing, so that research builds on itself, and that people aren't unnecessarily repeating research that has already been conducted. So a good literature review, and again you'll be doing this in your assignment for this class, a good literature review requires that you survey all available relevant literature. And this includes literature that agrees with the hypothesis that you may have developed or agrees with the ideas that you're putting forth, and also literature that may argue or disagree with the perspectives that you're putting forth, so that you really do a comprehensive, unbiased look at what's out there in the peer-reviewed literature. And if you remember from the mini video webcast from a few of the units ago, where we talked about how you access peer-reviewed literature and indeed what peer-reviewed literature means. So you're really looking at what's out there and including that extensively. You're then looking at synthesizing the information. So this is not just Article 1 said this, Article 2 said that. It's reading all of the articles, digesting what's common, stating what's common and what's uncommon among the research articles, and organizing it in a way that would let a reader know what is taking you many hours to pull together in a short amount of time. So this can include a critical analysis of information, including places where there might be controversy, and also places where that have identified future research that may be relevant to the work that you're doing. And then, of course, you have to cite very well so that people can access the same articles that you're looking at if they wish to do that. So as we've talked about in previous recordings, I've offered to you the most up-to-date and efficient way that I know to go about gathering information, and like so many things in life right now, that's through use of Google Scholar. But there are other mechanisms for accessing quality literature, and Google is not perfect. So you want to make sure that you look through different ways as well. So this might be talking with a professional researcher or someone that you know who has experience in the field, maybe a practitioner, to see if they have ideas about research they've read that might be worth tracking down. You can use the library subject indexes. As I've said, I think Google Scholar does a better, more comprehensive job, but you can look through other search engines if you're interested. And then another one that they add here, the footnote chasing, and this is a really important tool. So if you read an article that's really important to the work that you're undertaking, then there will be citations within that article. And so you'll look at who the authors of the important article cited and then trace those down through that article. So it's a way of tracing back and maybe picking up on research that you might have otherwise missed. So I'm going to provide a more detailed handout on steps for conducting a literature review, but just in the short summary, what are you going to do a literature review? Well, first of all, you of course access and decide what articles are relevant and you're including. And then you're going to critically look at each article. What are the methods of the article? How did they, who are the participants? How generalizable is the study? How many participants were involved? Who were those participants, and do they relate to the population you're interested in? And you're going to take a look at that and analyze the quality of each study. And then you're going to compare those articles to one another. So are findings similar? Are findings contradictory? And make note of those differences within the literature. And then you're going to prioritize which articles seem most relevant to the questions that you're asking and which ones are maybe only important on the periphery. And that those articles that are more important get more attention in your write-up than the ones that are only important on the small scale. And then you're going to, is your literature review, as I said before, summarize, synthesize what the research says so that the work that you've spent many hours reading and consolidating the information can be communicated relatively quickly to the reader of your research. But again, look for that handout that gives even more detail on conducting the literature review for your research. And also then using that information to determine if the research you're reading has done an adequate review of the literature.